Welcome back to the second episode of Art is Life. This is Adam Garber with my lifelong friend David Camacho. How you doing today, Dave?
Doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. So today we have chosen probably an oddball film for us. It's a rom-com, Eternity. Not usually in our usual repertoire of hoity movies, but we both felt this one had some elements to it that provided a real great conversation
Well,
about
Adam,
life.
it is an A24 production.
Well, there you have it. We're supporting a good studio, so there's the good bones to it. But I think both of us agree this one's got some great ideas about God, afterlife, decisions. I think our primary thesis on the last one was truth. So now we're going with regret and decision. So I think there's a good theme providing for us, and I think these are why we choose these films, and this is why we choose to have in-depth discussions about it. We're not really rating performances. We're not really talking about hairstyles and costumes. We're more into what the film says. So I'll give a little
Well,
brief synopsis about this one. Um, Eternity. It's essentially about an afterlife where souls get 1 week to decide where they want to spend eternity. Joan, the main character, played by Elizabeth Olsen, who I personally have a little bit of a crush for, um, has to choose because she's had two husbands. One she had married for 2 years, then went off to fight a war, and then the other she married for 65 years, built a life. She has to choose between the two in her afterlife, or choose to be with neither of them. So it's like I said, it all haunts on this one big decision. So you want to start us off with a little bit of analysis, or you want me to go forward, Dave?
I'd like to kick it off, and what I liked best about this film was its set design. The
Excellent. I
reason the
wanted to
reason
talk
I
about that
liked
as
it,
well.
whoever designed this in between this limbo-like state, which they call the junction, clearly they spent time in the Orlando airport because it looks just like MCO, but blown up, right? Like times 10. It has that same kind of like you're nowhere feel. There's no place there. It has the trade show where you get to choose your afterlife feels like a 1980s trade show floor. Little
Hmm.
details like fax machines and cardboard cutouts and stuff. Really, really well thought out, and the whole look and feel of that zone is consistent. Any thoughts on that, Adam?
Yeah, it had that old-timey feel, which I think, which, the whole thing starts off in the movie like, goes forward and reverse in time, which is really interesting too. But it has that I don't know, it had like a homey feel. So I think it was trying to appeal to an older generation. But what I really liked about it and what I wanted to talk about was that kind of that set design. And there are moments in this afterlife period where they drop down this sheet that's literally been painted with sky.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so interesting, the choices they made of I mean they could have used a modern digital sky. They could have done anything, but they chose to like paint it on this sheet essentially. And it just reminded me of course I took in college, taught by Carl Sagan about the infinity of space. And that, there's a point where humans just can't understand how big things are. And we can't wrap our head around these ideas because our brain just can't understand them on some level. And I thought that was a great way to approach this concept of eternity, that the only way to really describe it to the audience was to put it in these simple, old schooly, convention center themes, and that's the way it presented to the audience. And I thought that was a real way for us to understand what was going on, and draw a comparison and really relate to it in our head. Just because we, sometimes battling with that idea of afterlife, it's just too big a concept for you to chew in a 2 hour or hour and a half movie.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great insight, Adam. I thought, of course, of The Truman Show, which was
Yes.
another movie set in this artificial, closed environment. But in that show, everything was high tech. You remember it was
Yes.
computer, lights, everything. This one, it's really just a low tech version of that.
I also found the dichotomy between the two relationships to just be fascinating. I mean, I think it's Miles Teller. I mean, he's no not good looking guy, but they really try to make this comparison between him and the other. I think their names were Luke and
Larry,
Larry. You know, Larry is just the most common, boring name.
totally
And they really try to
stereotypical
present that
husband.
character of Miles Teller as this boring guy that she had the 65-year full life relationship, which we'll come back to in the end because I have
Sure.
an analysis on that final choice, which I think is pertinent. But I just found
Well,
that dichotomy between the two of this other Larry being this or Luke, sorry, being this perfect human that's just ravishing good looks and perfect character and he keeps trying to say that I'm not perfect through the whole movie and
yeah. I
remind you of
mean,
his flaws.
he gets his due. You know, he gets really upset at one point because everyone keeps calling him perfect, from the
Yes.
people who work there to the people he knows. And it's funny in a way because you first meet him, he's the bartender, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have a clue as to what his eventual significance is going to be to the story. But you don't get a sense at that point that here's this perfectly good-looking guy. It's only later when he comes in that role that everyone starts to fawn over him and treat him like he's some demigod.
Well, I mean, everybody loves their bartender, Dave. I mean,
Yeah, but it's not necessarily so that he's like ravishingly good looking. You know, some
no,
bartenders
I
are
agree. No,
different.
I know exactly what you're saying. I'm
But
just
but
kidding.
what I thought was interesting too about the trade show, going back to set, was the romanticized notions of the past that were being represented. And if there is a politics to this film, it's embedded there, right? In the
Yes.
casting choices for the people who work in this area, and also in the choices of the future, the eternity. It could be this fake romanticized version of America, of suburban America, right? And they're poking at it, right? They're poking at it like, hints at racism, this idea of MAGA, make America great again. When was it great and for whom?
Yeah.
The film
No,
seems to be.
there's one point where they talk about this old school Germany without the Nazis. And
Right,
even and
right.
I mean it's got some great humor in it, some jokes. It works the audience very well and carries you through the film. Unfortunately, it takes about an hour and 45 minutes to get to the meat where I was concerned, but it was entertaining through and through.
Well, it's kind of interesting because you get throughout the film, you get samples of these possible eternities, right? We get to
Yes.
see romanticized Paris without the French, apparently. You have
Yes.
another version of, I like this best. It was kind of a beach holiday eternity, right? So
Yes.
you think, okay, so this is what Larry, of course, chooses because he's a stereotypical, Northeastern husband type. So he
Yeah.
chooses this for his eternity. He wants his wife to join him there. And then they spend like a trial day there or something. And it's horrible. I mean, it's just packed with people and there's like kids screaming and there's no space for the blanket. And then a ball bonks him on the face, and it's just like, wow, that's eternity. Wow. So what I got from it was there's kind of a hellish aspect to this as well, right? Sartre, the great French philosopher who's referenced in the film, even they mispronounce his name, and there's a little bit of a comedy thing over that. Um, he had a famous play called No Exit. And No Exit was about eternity, and it was a room with three people in it. And they form a romantic triangle, two women and a man. And because of the shifting alliances and attractions, etc., they're just making each other miserable. And at the end of that play, there's a line, which is hell is other people. And I
Very
thought of
good.
that in this movie, that actually I wouldn't want to spend eternity with any of these people. And the thought that any two of them would pair up and be happy seemed absurd to me.
Well, true. And I mean, going to the beach is awesome if you're the only one there. You fill it up with another bunch of humans, it becomes, well, not so great,
Right, right.
which is probably every point in life, in my opinion.
Well, that's very interesting because I think another point the film was making, and it's not a new point, of course, is that the beauty of life is the fact that it ends, right?
No, she says that at some point. I think there's a point where she decides she can't decide between the two men. And she goes, so I choose neither of you. And it sets up a later pivotal moment. But yes, I agree. And then she goes off with her friend into that fake French universe where they speak with American French accents.
Yeah,
as you
really
say.
funny. Yeah, I'd love to see how that plays in France when they show it there. But going back to set design, the other thing I really loved was this theater of memory, right? So
Yes.
in the middle of a forest, in the most improbable place, you find a very small theater. You go inside, and it's a very long hallway, very dreamlike, and on the sides are sort of darkened arches. And if you stop in front of one, it illuminates, and you see a scene from your life
Yes.
play out. And so at different points, she goes to it and she actually becomes addicted to it at one point because at that point she's starting to miss the life she had with her husband, the grandkids, the births, etc. And so she starts to disengage from Luke, who she's with at that point in some kind of Switzerland-like mountain setting, eternity. And she starts to rue her decision to go with Luke instead of her husband, which she makes at one point. I thought that was very clever. And also the fact that at one point she steals the key to go into the back of that theater. And when you go into the back of the theater, what you get are all the suppressed negative memories from your life, right? All the
Yes.
family arguments and bitter disagreements and just like anxiety. And that I thought was really clever and very effective. It reminded me a lot of Brazil, if you've seen that terrific
Yes.
Terry
Yes. I
Gilliam
agree
film,
with that 100%.
the dream sequence in it where it's this kind of like this hellish but symbolic universe that you enter into. I thought that was really well done.
No, and they use that element that I talked about with that simplistic design where it
Yeah.
looks like crayon drawings, but the only thing that's real and really accurately depicted are the two characters or the three characters
Yes.
that are
Yes.
involved in the scene and having that thing. And it's almost like this little personal play, but it's almost like with marionette characters. And it brings about, like I said, she keeps going back to the memory booths and longs for that connection. And it's a collection of our memories. And the curator even at some point says it's not healthy to keep coming back. You need to
That's
move
right.
on.
Yeah. Was that John
Um,
Lovitz? It looked just like John Lovitz from SNL.
it did, yeah. There were just really kooky, funny little digs that the movie kind of paces you along with, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not
And
overt humor. It's not Monty Python. It's not National Lampoon. It's more witty humor, I thought.
it was. And there's also callbacks to famous moments in movie history, like Keir Dullea in 2001, right? Where he sees himself on his own deathbed after going to the end of the universe, right? In this kind of trippy sequence at the end of that film. And in this film, where she goes and sees her own body dying as an old woman on the deathbed, I thought of that scene in 2001 as
It
well.
reminds me of little elements of the Life of Pi too. It has that kind of
Mm,
circular reawakening where you see your own death. And it makes you reflect on your life. So let's get to the heart of it, to that decision and why I think it has political
sure.
ramifications. Because that's why we made the podcast, and that's where I want to go.
Go
Um,
for it.
and then she talks about why she chooses that she chooses that eternity with her long lost love that she was married to for 2 years, and he goes off to war and dies, and then ends up waiting. Then he waits for her an eternity for 65 years. And she ends up going with him after her longtime husband kind of sacrifices himself at the altar and basically says, "Where I get joy is by making knowing that you're happy," and that's how he's
Yeah.
lived his whole life.
Very beautiful moment in the film.
Yeah, it is a very beautiful moment. Agree. And she basically says to the love to Luke. She basically says, he's like, "Why can't you enjoy it? Why can't you just be with me?" And she's like, "Well, maybe I got caught up in this paradise. It was young love that you
Hmm.
feel that you feel before you feel loss." It's that innocent love that everything's great. You're going on these first dates, everything's positive. The feelings are rekindling, but real love is sorrow and sadness, and being with someone that you love through those tough times, the good times, the bad times, real life. And I thought, I think that's what's happening right now in America. That a lot of voters are looking back and going, boy, what I thought I was making this change for the better. And now I'm looking back going, what did I do? And everybody's having to deal with those decisions. And some people can deal with them head on, and some people can't admit that they made a wrong choice. And we're just in this purgatory now because a lot of Americans just can't come to the mature decision that, hey, I made a wrong choice
Well,
and
I
I
think
need
in
to self-correct.
in the midterms and in all the special elections, we're seeing that people are starting to
I
realize,
hope
they
so.
have remorse for what they chose. But there, yeah, the political aspects are very interesting for this moment. I thought casting as well and acting, going back to your point, the point you wanted to make about that choice she makes, I thought she did a great job, Olsen, inhabiting the character and how they conveyed, you saw through her acting when she was with her young love who she hadn't seen for 65 years or 67 years. She lit up. She became a little girl again, right? She was in
Yes.
love with this man. But then what was beautiful for me was how she shifted so naturally to being with her husband in this very kind of like humdrum way. They're too familiar and they're a little bit like not appreciative of each other, not really. But at the same time, you saw that they had a deep, warm connection. And when they were on the rowboat, for instance, facing up, I thought that was a beautiful scene, sort of like just on the water floating. And you saw that there was an intimacy there, that there was something between them, that there wasn't just he wasn't just the second backup choice, that she did care for him, and that they had something very special.
Yeah, I mean that's that to me it's about that deep love that not everybody gets to feel. And I think that first love everybody probably has at least once or twice or maybe three times or multiple times in your life.
Sure.
That hunt, that attraction, that need, that desire. And the where you put it on a shelf, and you almost it's almost not real. And it's certainly not something that you could ever hope to kindle for eternity, that sooner or later it's going to die out. And the
But but
reality is,
but Luke misses that. He says to her, "I never got a chance to live that life with you, that humdrum life." That's what he actually wants.
he thinks he wants it,
He thinks he wants.
he
Yeah.
thinks he wants it, but he spends most of his days doing activities and excitement, and he doesn't really do humdrum things. And he
No, no,
doesn't
no.
really
He's an
search for those
action character.
memories.
He's an action character. It's kind of funny too. He died in the Korean conflict, and there's
Yes.
several references to that as kind of like the forgotten war. Like nobody,
Yeah.
people talk about World War One, World War Two, and even
Yeah.
Vietnam, but they don't talk about Korea.
Yeah. It's like a running joke to the movie. It's very
Yeah,
well
yeah,
done.
yeah, yeah.
Well, overall, I thought it was an enjoyable rom-com. I like sappy movies, and I like sometimes movies that aren't that great. But I thought giving us that choice, and looking back and having that sense of regret, and being mature enough to, she could have just stayed there, and suffered, but she chose to be brave, and to perhaps. I guess the thing is that in this scenario, that if you get out of your eternity that you choose, you only get that one choice, that you could live forever in darkness.
Yeah, but if you recall, at the end of the film, she ends up choosing the same suburban lifestyle that she had with her husband for
Yeah.
eternity, which to me suggested the filmmaker is making the case that you're in your paradise right now. You're
Yes.
in the moment that you're living. This is your life. It's not a lead up to anything else. This is it.
I
Eternity in the
mean
moment.
that's the beauty of the simplicity of the movie is that philosophical decision that we're always looking for something else when what we really need might be right in front of us. The heaven that we desire might actually be here on earth.
True, true. Now, I'd like to ask you about your opinion of the casting of it, right? So, to me, it felt that, okay, the leads were all done well. The afterlife coordinators, I'd like to talk about them for a second, right?
Sure.
It felt a little bit forced to me in kind of a PC way
No, I
that we're
felt
gonna,
it felt definitely forced. I
it's
would
okay.
agree with that assessment, although I kind of just blew it off as trying to be funny and trying to be modern. And you're right. I mean that I guess that in our society we try to be a little too political, too correct, too woke. So I guess there were woke elements of this movie that bled through, Dave.
Yeah.
Correct.
Just
Correct.
checking, just checking. It wasn't just me. All right. Yeah. So in the end, I mean, I thought it was an interesting film. Thank you for suggesting it. I didn't think I'd like it, but in the end, I walked away with some interesting thoughts. But after spending 2 hours with these people, I tend to agree with Sartre. Hell can be other people, and I wouldn't want to spend any more time with these folks at all.
You would choose darkness, huh, Dave?
Maybe so, Adam.
Okay. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully, it was enjoyable for you too. And go out and see a movie.
Take care, everyone.
Ciao.